To examine the subject of stars and politics, here's Frank Sinatra, a man in dead center of the controversy. Now, Frank, this is not the first political year in which you've been publicly active, is it?
No, it isn't, Paul. As a matter of fact, I've been active since 1944, when Mr. Roosevelt ran against Mr. Dewey. And it might also be added that I was indoctrinated in politics as a layman or as a boy when I was about 13 years old and campaigning in an pre-election night parade for Mr. Al Smith, carrying a banner. And it goes pretty far back.
Well, you went further than that in the Stevenson campaign. To what extent were you active with Stevenson?
Frankly, I was more active with Mr. Roosevelt's campaign than I was with Mr. Stevenson. But it was the same kind of activity. I did what I could as an entertainer and make a contribution that I thought I could afford, and other odds and ends that I thought I might be able to help the party with.
All right, now, let's discuss what it is that you can afford. As this particular year, you've taken a very strong stand in favor of Kennedy. Now, as a performer, don't you run a career risk in taking a political side?
I don't think so, Paul. I think that the fact that I'm supporting Kennedy doesn't make me think for a second that the American public is naive enough to... I mean, the American public is fair-minded enough to recognize that every individual has a right to say what he thinks and to speak up for the candidate of his choice.
You don't think that you alienate thousands of fans who, let us say, like Frank Sinatra singing, but don't like his politics?
I don't think so. I think that anyone who's fair, as I said, won't, for instance, after the election, think any different of my singing than they did before, whether or not I win or lose. For instance, a couple of days ago, I was having my hair cut, and the barber spent about 20 minutes telling me about what a great man he thought Mr. Nixon was. And the shoeshine boy asked for equal time, and I gave him about 12 minutes for Kennedy. But the crux of the whole meeting was that the manicurist was on the fence. She couldn't make up her mind. So that everybody has a rooting interest, and I think we all should have. And that's the way the country operates in our general presidential elections.
Yeah, but we're also, we're a pretty commercial nation, thank God, and we should continue to be. Now, what about the sponsor? Doesn't he have a legitimate complaint if the star of his show takes a political side and therefore very possibly affects the sale of a product?
I have never known of a sponsor to make a statement of any kind to a client or his employee as to why he's rooting for a particular candidate.
It's never happened to you?
Never happened to me, never. And I've worked for a great many large organizations and business people in the United States, and I've never had the occasion to be questioned about it.
Well, now, let's put it this way. Suppose it did happen to you. Do you know, have you thought about what you would reply if you were asked not to publicly express a political opinion?
Well, I would say that if such a thing were injected in a contract, consequently there'd be no contract. But if it came to me during the course of a series of programs that they were unhappy with my delving into politics, they would have to get a new boy, because I don't feel it's fair.
You feel they're allowed to have their political opinion?
They should have their political beliefs, and I should have mine.
All right, but might there not be a serious question, almost a question of ethics, Frank, in the fact that a star, when he campaigns for a candidate, is swaying votes on an emotional basis? They're saying if Sinatra likes Kennedy, we like Sinatra, therefore we'll vote for Kennedy. Isn't there a danger to our country in this?
I don't think so, Paul. For instance, let me give you an example. I'd like to talk in the jargon of show business sense. The other day, one of the largest pictures in years was opened up in many major cities in America called Spartacus. Now, I feel that if all of the people who buy tickets, the Republicans, stayed away, let's say, for example, if Tony Curtis is a Kennedy rooter, if they stayed away, and then all the Democrats stayed away if, for instance, Kirk Douglas was a Nixon rooter, and all the anarchists stayed away because Laurence Olivier was a fan of Queen Elizabeth, then they've blown $12 million because nobody's going to go to see the picture.
Well, now, you become closely identified with Senator Kennedy. What happens to a star in that position? You almost have to be as meticulous in your in creating an image of yourself as he does. And after all, you're not a very reticent man. You're known to be pretty bombastic, Frank. Is it uncomfortable for you, this new position?
I don't think there's a particular position here. I think that it doesn't change my way of life, and my way of life has been ridiculed from time to time, as you very well know. But
I've heard that, you know.
But being bombastic is something else. I don't particularly believe that, and I can tell you that lightly that you're a newspaper man, Paul, and you know that things are exaggerated very often in the press. If I stand and if I stop to have a chat with a photographer, I have kicked him before I left the conversation. Mm-hmm. If I am appearing somewhere as a customer or a guest in a club or a restaurant and there's a brawl, then I'm a Rocky Marciano, and I could be a mile away from it, and so on and so forth, so that it's not really being bombastic, it's being a clay pigeon.
Well, but as this clay pigeon, you now have to be awfully careful what you do, don't you, because of the identity with the senator?
Well, that's a tough question, because what to do about what? Because these kind of things can come up in a moment's notice or 30-second notice without you even being aware of it.
Well, it might almost mean Frank Sinatra better stay home and stay out of sight until the election is over.
Well, I don't believe I'd do anything like that. I wouldn't be very honest to do that.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, but if you are this clay pigeon, you're in a very difficult position, and I wonder how uncomfortable you feel about it.
I've never thought about it, really.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel uncomfortable, I imagine.
One final question, Frank. We know that you're a Kennedy fan. Is Kennedy a Sinatra fan?
Well, I guess the only way we could find that out if I was running against Como or Crosby or somebody, then we could take a vote.
Well, if he wouldn't vote for you, I would. Thanks so much.
Well, you'll forgive me because I want to go back and find a manicurist to see if I can sway her to vote my way.
Thanks so much. Well, that's the word from the nation's political capital, Hollywood, California. This is Paul Coates. Thanks very much, and Walter, get well.